Today we'll be analyzing Yacat, one of the best Echo players in the Asia region. Even when not many players were playing Echo during Overwatch 1, he was one of the few players that took the highest ranks of top 500 with Echo as his most played hero. When you visit Yacat's stream, you can see him practicing hit scans, Tracer, as well as most of the other heroes to keep up his performance, because Echo's ultimate requires mastery of other heroes to some degree. For today's composition, we have Revenge from the 2019 Hangzhou Spark, who recently ended his military service, as well as Winston, Kiriko, and Torbjorn. Before we head into the game, let's talk about Esperanca. If your team takes position close to the bot, it puts your team at a disadvantage by the map's design. If you follow the main path, it makes it difficult to utilize the high ground. The area around the bot is also an open space with limited cover, so this can be a dangerous area for low mobility heroes to position in. Furthermore, this could set up a situation where the enemies control the high ground while a team is forced to play on the low ground. This can open up the possibility for the enemy team to use both sides of the high ground to set up a deadly crossfire, completely surrounding your team. For these reasons, you can see both teams contesting each other from their respective high grounds for the first fight. In these standoff situations, you never want to get overzealous, so our Echo only tries to apply pressure with right click. In the tank matchup, Winston can get bursted down easily by the D.Va, so the ally team has to give up some space. The enemy team's frontlining capability is much stronger with D.Va and Brig, so they push towards bot while abandoning their high ground. Yacat looks for a chance to burst down the tail end of the enemy team, and after punishing the enemy tank with the ally Ana, Yacat flanks into the enemy backline. After spotting the Baptiste, he first pulls out the Immortality field with primary fire first, then uses right click to compensate against the Baptiste's regenerative burst, removes the Immortality field with primary fire, then beams as the finisher. He seems to have a combo against specific heroes after playing Echo in most of his games. In the start of the next fight, Yacat allows the allies to utilize the high ground while he pushes the bot to the left. By rotating in the opposite direction of the team, he essentially opens up an additional angle against the enemies. If they had chosen to stay on the high ground, the enemy team would have gotten punished from both angles. As soon as he spots the enemy Genji, Yacat reacts with a right click and beam to delete the ninja. With the Kitsune Rush and Molten Core available for the team, the allies dive onto the enemy squishies. It's important to push in together during coordinated ults like this, even if you aren't focusing the same target, because it allows you to distract the enemies from the fight. While taking space early, our Winston leaps onto the Genji with a combo, and Yacat immediately follows up with beam for the kill. When he starts taking too much focus fire, Yacat uses copy to escape from the pressure. One of the best uses for Echo's ultimate is to survive and essentially reset your cooldowns and health, allowing you to push in for an extended turn. After the first checkpoint, the enemy Brig uses Rally, which makes it difficult for the allies to take the fight head on. Well, it looks like Sojourn has a late spawn, so our Echo flanks to the right and assassinates the respawning Sojourn. Continuing on the same path, we can directly transition into pressuring the enemy backline. After losing 2 fights and winning the last, we're back again past the first checkpoint. The map is an open, linear road which limits routes to the enemy backline, and that isn't great for Echo, so Yacat rotates by taking cover in the rooms and surprises the enemy Zen with a right click, primary fire, and beam. After assassinating the Zen, we rotate around to the spawn side to get an angle into the backline, which is a great way to surround the enemies as the allies push from main. Nice reaction speed. Echo is one of those heroes where once you get in the groove of things, you can start a huge snowball, making the game feel like a one-sided match. I'm sure many of you know exactly how it feels to play against a good Echo. Unlike other off-meta heroes like Torbjorn, Symmetra, Junkrat, Mei, and Pharah, Echo almost has an infinite number of possibilities in terms of movement and decision making. Even when you choose to play together with the frontline, you can easily shut down enemy DPS who are taking off angles with right click and primary fire. She's great for following up on dives and chasing enemies down, but nothing beats Echo's kill potential and her ability to assassinate enemy squishies. He copies the Kiriko to survive. He then jumps into the enemy backline for an assassination, a very familiar position to flex CPS players. When you take on aggro by pressuring the backline during Echo's ult, the enemy frontline tank gets naturally isolated, giving you the chance to immediately melt the tank with right click, primary fire, and beam. You can see that our team is only utilizing one angle. After both teams trade a few cooldowns, indicating the potential for a teamfight, Yacat flies into the left building to get an angle for an assassination. The timing was just right with the ally Winston, allowing our Echo to follow up with the dive. Excluding some extreme examples, every hero in Overwatch can be playable even against counter heroes as long as you establish viable playstyles and patterns against those counter picks, but I think Echo especially isn't affected by counters as much as the rest of the cast. The last map for today's Echo analysis is New Queen Street. Echo is a phenomenal pick against shieldless tanks who have no way to block poke damage. As long as you choose to play patiently, the enemy frontline isn't able to hold a forward position because of the massive burst damage and have to fall back. Pay special attention to our Echo's pathing. After he checks the location of our allies heading main, Yacat takes the side angle, but once our location is exposed to the enemies are able to respond easily if we engage from the same position, so he routes back around to main in order to take an off angle from the other side. We spot the Sojourn on high ground looking directly forward, so Yacat flies over the roof out of the Sojourn sidelines to punish the enemy backline. Just like Esperanca from the previous rounds, we approach the open area of the map with long sightlines, and like before, our Echo flanks wide to wrap completely around to the back and attempts to assassinate the enemy Ana. We receive a nano, and thanks to the boost, we pick off the Ana and successfully create a crossfire. If you successfully assassinate an enemy player after rotating around, you have the opportunity to head directly into the fight to create a crossfire for your team, which is one of the patterns you can utilize on Echo. We attempt to pick off the Sojourn with primary fire, right click, and beam, but the Sojourn is able to survive. The reason you don't want to immediately reuse an off angle is exactly because of what you see here. Because the team knows the location of the enemy, it becomes so much easier to react to and punish. After returning from spawn, Yacat checks the enemy positions from high ground. Target spotted, we immediately move to contest the side, preventing Tracer from flanking around for free. While in the air, Yacat spots the enemy Mercy in the back, so he glides around the roof to get close and he lands the right click, primary fire, and beam for the assassination. And what happens when you succeed? That's right, you create a crossfire on the enemies. This assassination playstyle makes up most of Yacat's patterns on Echo. In fact, you can see him rotate around to the side again, waits for the cooldown, and assassinates the tail end of the enemy team. If we take a look at the current balance of the game, Echo almost feels like a better version of Genji. Assassinations, ult value, poking, mobility, there isn't a single aspect Echo falls behind on. But of course, with the start of Season 3, Soldier as well as Sombra received meaningful buffs, so we'll have to wait and see to know whether this will inhibit Echo's ability to take risks. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.